Our call to worship this morning is adapted from words by Reverend Scott Taylor. As we gather together this morning, may we arrive with courage, hungry for a curiosity that challenges and changes us, knowing that our answers are never complete and the questions make us whole. Come now and let us worship together. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yay, come fill our rug. This month we are talking about curiosity. And I know last week some of you wrote interesting stories in class, didn't you? How many of you took part in that, writing stories last week? One, two. None of the rest of you were here? Oh my goodness, okay. For those of you who are here, do you remember the questions that you were asked for those stories? Yes.
When, where, why.
When, where, why. Who? How. Yes, you got them. Now this morning I have some questions for you. And I know you're pretty smart, so I'm guessing that you'll be able to figure them out. Of course, I have a secret box here. And I have this bowl, well, we'll see if I can get to it here. This bowl of blue liquid. What do you think this might be?
Water with blue food coloring.
Water with blue food coloring.
Water with vinegar.
Water with vinegar. Did you have a guess? Water. Yes?
Maybe I think it's some kind of liquid with food coloring in it.
Some kind of liquid with food coloring in it. See, I told you they were smart. Yes?
Seawater, because sometimes that can be blue.
Seawater can be blue? Nobody said antifreeze. I'm glad because I didn't bring antifreeze. I guess maybe that's more green, isn't it?
Water with soap.
I'm going to say water with soap. It does kind of look like Dawn, doesn't it? Now, I wonder where that blue liquid comes from.
Blue tube.
The blue tube. Oh my goodness, y'all are on it. But look in here. Look inside my box. It comes into the box, and then it goes over there. Wait, we want to move that blanket out of the way. There, you all can sit down. Now, when it comes to that tube, let's stay over here for a second. I want to know if you can tell me, if you look inside the tube, what do you see? Can you tell more about the water by looking inside the tube?
It's all blue.
It's blue and there's air bubbles. Here, what if you use one of these? Do you want to use one? These are little magnifying glasses for you all to reach in and see if you can see better.
One tube.
We can share with you. Here you go, Zelda. We'll share with you. You gotta
Here we go. Magnify.
Once you've had a look, let's hand our magnifying glasses off to someone else who hasn't had a chance to look yet. What do you see in there? Shane's jumping ahead. What did you see in there?
Back in the basket.
Do not use for ice maker. He's reading the tubing. Let's do what some of the bigger kids over here are doing. Let's follow the tube and see where it goes.
Way up there.
It's way up there.
Up to the sea.
Well, it goes all the way up.
And up. It ducks coloring from the sky.
I wonder where it's coming from.
Yeah, me too.
Well, now if you look at the tube right here, do you see the little blue droplets coming down?
Yeah.
Do you see them coming down? Where do you think that's coming from?
Ceiling.
From the ceiling? Where else might it be coming from? From leaks? It could be leaks.
The sky.
Buildings and grounds? It could be leaks.
Water.
It could be the sky. The blue sky has turned to blue water in our sanctuary.
Maybe from a science lab.
Or somebody set this up, apparently. Let's go ahead and have a seat back down on the floor.
Maybe from a science lab.
Maybe from a science lab. There's a good guess. Let's come on back down, Zelda. You can put your magnifying glasses back in the basket and have a seat. And have a seat.
I know how you
You know how I got it up there?
Yeah.
You see, y'all are just way too smart for me.
Came from my
Thank you. Right in there. Thank you. Okay, let's have a seat. Let's have a seat. So I wonder, you all had some good guesses. I wonder, nobody said maybe there's a hose attached to it. Maybe it catches the rain when it rains outside, even though it's hot and deserty here. A rain barrel does it, yes, exactly. Maybe it runs from the bathroom. Ew. An angry scientist. Maybe it's Smurf tears. What do you think? There's so many possibilities. All right, I want to share just a little bit about what we just did this morning, yes?
Maybe it's from the gutters.
Maybe it's from the gutters, yes. If our gutters are blue, we need to get those cleaned. All right. This experiment that we did this morning, and thank you all for all your good guesses and your good exploration.
Let's drink some.
No, let's not drink some, because we don't know what it is yet. If it's Smurf tears, you probably don't, it's probably salty. What I wanted to get you to do was to ask a lot of questions and then go searching for the answers.
Why was it coming down?
Why was it coming down? Where was it coming from? What was the source of it? You know, gravity. You know, in church,
Connected up there.
well, see, you are on it now. Sometimes when we're in church, I ask a lot of questions. And you know, I ask you all a lot of questions sometimes too, right? I also ask the adults questions when I'm preaching to them later. Questions like, what do you believe? Why are we here? What is the purpose of our lives? And one of my favorite questions is, how can we love each other more? And do you know why I ask those questions? Because when you ask questions, especially when you don't know the answers, you're right, you learn more. If we follow the tube, you guys followed it all the way around, and you followed it up the beam and all the way up there to where we couldn't see it anymore, and you still asked questions, just like scientists and teachers and astronauts and ministers. We ask questions like all the time. Maybe it's an invisibility cloak up there covering it. So I want to invite you all to keep asking questions. Keep looking for answers. Keep searching. This month is about curiosity, so let's be curious. Maybe. You all are going to keep asking questions. Why don't we ask our adults to stand and form our arch while we sing you off to class? Thank you. Go now in peace. May God's Spirit blossom everywhere. You may go. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May God's Spirit blossom around you. Everywhere, everywhere. You may go. For all the mothers and mother figures, the grandmothers, aunts, and extended family members who mother, the soon-to-be mothers, the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, the it's complicated mothers, the birth mothers, foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers, the used to be dad mothers, and more than one mom mothers, the single mothers, separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers, the grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the great mother, you are held and beloved. Amen. How many of you spent time along a river? Really? I figured everybody would raise their hand, especially since we live near 3 of them. Y'all aren't used to working so hard like the children do when I'm up here, are you? Now I want you to think about your time by the river, and think about whether or not you were able to perceive that the water was moving. Perhaps it was a fast-moving river with white-capped rapids, or more of a gentle stream in which you noticed the autumn leaves floating by. Maybe you could hear the rushing sound of water moving, roaring or trickling. Perhaps you waded into the river and could feel the moving water push against your body. Or maybe you plopped yourself onto an inner tube and let the current take you for a ride. Seems like a common enough experience. Now, how many of you, while you were sitting on the banks of a river, or perhaps in or on the water itself, how many of you have ever wondered what the source of that particular river is? Where does it come from? Where does it originate? Is it from a nearby glacier? Is it connected to a long system of rivers that flows from the mountains hundreds or thousands of miles away? How does the precipitation and evaporation affect that particular river? Has the river changed shape over time, carved out different channels, or simply eroded its banks? Why? Why does the river flow that way and not that way? These questions feel like an avenue to get closer to understanding the source of the river, the source of life, the source of being. I mentioned earlier with the children that they wrote stories last week pertaining to our monthly theme of curiosity. They took the questions who, what, where, when, why, and how, and passed them around so different people could answer the questions, and that's how they created the stories that are hanging. They're hanging on that corkboard right there by the kitchen. If you want to read them, they're on the purple paper. One of the stories was about a lizard and dragon who crashed from an alien spaceship and right now are down the street making Post-it notes for the good of us all. I don't know about you, but I'm surely curious to find out more. Using those questions, who, what, where, when, why, and how, they came up with creative and fanciful narratives. Some of the hows included happily and with an infinity stone. Some of the whys include they wanted adventure and because you ate the last piece of cake. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. I'm curious what kind of answers you come up with when you ask these questions. Our first hymn, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? I would add, why are we here? Who knows? How do we find out? Happily or with an infinity stone? What if I tell you, surprisingly enough, that I don't know? Not because I don't ask these questions regularly, but because I don't propose to answer them for you. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Search for, the operative words there. Search, that looking for, that examining. The pick up the magnifying glass and trace the river exploration that may or may not lead to answers. It may just lead to more questions. But it's the search, questing for the source of that river, for the source of that strange, out-of-place tubing that runs up the wall of the sanctuary to who knows where. Search for the source of all knowing, of all life, the source of what is, of who is, of where and when and how, and perhaps most importantly, why. However imperceptible the movement of the water in a river, by its very nature as a river, the water is moving. However obvious the path a river takes, its ability to move and change make it anything but static. And the source of that river, the source of the life-sustaining water that runs beside or beneath us, is what's of great importance. This week marks the 58th anniversary of the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Association. I want to share a little bit of our history, and this was compiled by Mark W. Harris. Unitarians and Universalists have always been heretics. We are heretics because we want to choose our faith, not because we desire to be rebellious. Heresy in Greek means choice. During the first 3 centuries of the Christian church, believers would choose from a variety of tenets about Jesus. Among these was a belief that Jesus was an entity sent by God on a divine mission. The word Unitarian developed, meaning the oneness of God. Another religious choice was universal salvation. This was the belief that no person would be condemned by God to eternal damnation. Universalists believed that all people would be saved. Christianity lost its element of choice in 325 when the Nicene Creed established the Trinity as dogma. For centuries thereafter, people who professed Unitarian or Universalist beliefs were persecuted. 2,000 years ago, liberals were persecuted for seeking the freedom to make religious choices. But such freedom has become central to both Unitarianism and Universalism. As early as the 1830s, both groups were studying and promulgating texts from world religions other than Christianity. By the beginning of the 20th century, humanists within both traditions advocated that people could be religious without believing in God. No one person, no one religion can embrace all religious truths. Reverend Marilyn Sewell writes about the tension between our two ancestor traditions, analyzing the nature of infinity and focusing on the spirit of love. Nevertheless, she goes on, the two groups had much in common. Most significantly, each was a free faith with no creed, and both had a strong polity of congregational autonomy. Too liberal for both Calvin and Luther, they had come out of the left wing of the Protestant Reformation and were adamant that each person must be free to follow the dictates of conscience. The Unitarians brought the concept of one God, and the Universalists, who believed in the doctrine of universal salvation, were widely known for their tolerance and generosity of spirit. Both groups allowed the umbrella of their religion to encompass an increasingly diverse range of beliefs. By the middle of the 20th century, it became clear that Unitarians and Universalists could have a stronger liberal religious voice if they merged their efforts. And so they did so in May of 1961, forming the Unitarian Universalist Association. We often call it the UUA. Unitarian Universalism welcomes all to an expanding circle of understanding and choice in religious faith. Our history has carried us from liberal religious Christian views about Jesus and human nature to a rich pluralism that includes theist and atheist, agnostic and humanist, pagan, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, and more. As our history continues to evolve and unfold, so do we. And so today, we are Unitarian, with strong emphasis on reason and learning. We tend to be highly educated, and we love ideas, but we are not satisfied to rest there. We are also Universalists, wanting to explore emotional and spiritual depths, wanting to be whole persons, generous and loving, and ever more inclusive. So why do I share this history today? It's not simply to note the anniversary of our founding. As we talk about the source of things, we cannot not talk about our ancestors. And on Mother's Day, a time when we honor those who gave us life, it makes sense to look back, to seek wisdom from another kind of source. Who we are today corresponds with who we've been before, and this informs who we are becoming. From our radical roots, from the Universalist heretics and the Unitarian martyrs, we are modern-day Unitarian Universalists. How likewise, when we explore our own faith, when we take the magnifying glass to what we believe and continue to search for truth, meaning, source. How expansive are our answers? How far-flung is our search for truth? How deep is our commitment to our principles and to the well of love? I suggest that this search, this asking of the questions, is actually part of the answer itself. Seeking the source may be part of where we come from. When you draw from a well and you utilize that water, does it not in some way or another return to the earth and eventually flow back into filling the same well? What is the source of? Where is it? How is it? When is it? On this Mother's Day, as we lift up those who have given us life, and all of those who have parented and accompanied us through our lives, let us also honor the source of our wisdom, the source of our conviction, the source of our search. For the third year in a row, the Black Mamas Bailout Day movement is raising money to bail out as many Black women from jail as possible today, and to call attention to the injustice of cash bail. The nature of our cash bail system means that poor people are stuck in jails because they can't afford to get out, not because they've actually been convicted of a crime. Reverend Kiyama Raman shares the following as part of the Black Mamas, telling a story to her daughter about her ancestors' struggles. Now is the time to call the memories of the ancestors who thought they could not walk another step toward freedom, and yet they did. It is that time and place to call on the memories of the ancestors who, when the darkness of their lives threatened to take away the hope and light, reached a little deeper and prayed yet another prayer. It is that time and place to remember those who came through the long night to witness another sunrise. It is that time and place to remember the oceans of tears shed to deliver us to this time. To remember the bent knees, to remember the fervent voices asking, begging, and beseeching for loved ones sold off. Time to remember their laughter and joy, though they had far less, and little reason for optimism, yet they stayed on the path toward a better day. Time to hold to the steadfast hands and hearts and prayers of the ancestors that have brought us this far. Time to make them proud and show them and ourselves what we are made of. Time to show them that their prayers and sacrifices and lives were not in vain and did not go unnoticed, nor have they been forgotten. May the source of our being be exalted. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, ancestors, parents, those who have come before, those who have taught us, those who have raised us, those who have loved us. May our quest for truth and meaning draw us closer to the source of that which holds all, to the great love beyond our understanding. May we ask the questions, tirelessly seeking answers so that we can discover new questions to ask. May we follow what we know, what we can perceive, and ask about what we don't know and what we can't see. Be curious, my friends. Amen.